Welcome back to the Nutters Club. My name's Hamish Ross, and in the studio with me tonight, psychotherapist Kyle McDonald. Now, we're heading to Dunedin on the phone to talk to a newly published author who's written a very interesting book that you might be interested in. During the 80s and 90s, Brendan grew up in small-town New Zealand where, unfortunately, his appearance became the source of ongoing bullying. He managed to overcome it and thrive, to say the least, but he's turned his journey into a book titled The Fat Ginger Nerd, a weight loss story. It was published and released in March, and Brendan joins us from his home in Dunedin. Brendan, good evening to you.
Evening, Hamish.
Brendan, take us back to where your story started. Where were you and what was going on in your life that led to the bullying initially?
Well, I was a big boy, to say the least, right for pretty much as long as I could remember. Right from the very earliest of the school days, I had kids pointing my weight out to me in various uncomplimentary ways. It never really got physical. It was just the names, but there were a lot of them, and it was all day, every day, constantly, particularly when the teachers weren't around, of course. It just wasn't really much fun to be singled out for something that was, for me, quite a sensitive issue, and I certainly didn't want to be that way. But people would point it out to me anyway, as if I had somehow consciously chosen to be fat, that I'd made this dumb decision to not look after myself, when nothing could have been furthest from the truth. I always meant to look after myself and want to eat well and live well and be healthy, but my problem was that the things that people were telling me to do just weren't working. The main one being that, the assumption being, oh, well, the reason you're fat is because you eat too much, so just stop eating, right? But the first thing that happened in my case, whenever I'd stop eating, I'd just get hungry. And that was when that traditional argument sort of began to first fall away in my mind. If the idea of weight loss is just about not eating so much, so that your body will just burn that fat stores that we're already carrying, then why am I still getting hungry? Why do I still get hungry when I'm already fat? And it would take me another, 25, 30 years before I finally figured out that answer.
Can you talk us through what effect the bullying had on you as a young person, and what was some of that flow-on effect into your young adult life?
Well, what it meant for me is, it didn't take me long to realise that whenever there weren't any grown-ups around, no parents, no teachers, no anybody around, in particular, the kids would just have at it with me, and what that meant was, okay, well, if people are just going to be like that to me, then I'm just going to have to do my best to avoid those people. And as I grew older, and it never really stopped, some of the older people would start to make comments about me as well. And what that led to over time was just a sense of, well, the world is rejecting me. They don't like me. They're just making fun of me. I don't want to be the subject of all of this. So I just seek to retreat from that outside world. I feel the sense of rejection, and I'm like this outcast, a failure of a human being, if you like. And so I just hide away, and I'm by myself without many friends. I pick up sort of inside solo habits like books and TV shows, movies, music. Video games was a big one for me for most of my life, still is to a point now, not quite so much though these days. The overriding sense being that, if they can't see me, then they can't hurt me, inside good, outside bad. So the social skills were not so great, obviously, very, very introverted, still am to a point. But yeah, just hide myself away from the world, in effect.
What changed?
What changed was the onset of physical pain to go with the emotional struggles, and the physical struggles, obviously, of all the weight over a period of years led to the onset of chronic pain. For me, that pain was in the chest area, which is not really a part of the body that anybody ever really wants to feel pain in. So in desperation, I try a bit of walking, just to work and back every day, that sort of thing. And even that, as simple as it sounds, is not an easy thing for somebody of the size that I was, to do at my heaviest, I was about 137 kgs. And at a height of 1.75 meters, that gives me a BMI of 45. So I'm off the chart. I'm not in a good place. But I did lose a little bit of weight in the course of the next sort of 6 months of what for me was a really hard slog. Then I made an appointment at a gym thinking, well, this exercise seems to be working. Let's take it further. And he took a look at me and said, "No, mate, we need to go back and take a look at what you're eating." And he suggested a diet that I was really quite skeptical about at first, but gave it a shot anyway. Just, when you're desperate, you'll try anything, right? And expecting it to be, the end of me, if anything, but it turned out instead to be a whole new beginning.
So this new beginning, explain to us the new thoughts and feelings you were having about yourself.
I guess to sum it up in a single word, I would say freedom. The freedom physically to do things that I was, never able to do before. Big and small, to be able to fit jeans properly. Anybody of a certain size will know what I'm talking about when I say that you could put pants on, for example, and you could either wear them high or wear them low because the bulge on your tummy is just in the wrong position to be able to properly fit pants or whatever. Little things like that. Bigger things at the other end of the scale to be able to travel overseas. That's a big deal because, again, you're not just putting yourself out there in your community, you're putting yourself out there to the world. So to fly to places like to Australia or the US to attend things like conferences and mingle not just with individual people, but with crowds of people, and to actually talk to these people and hold conversations with these people. I've had a lot of learning to do about, what life can be like and how satisfying life really can be, that there is a world out there to be enjoyed.
You've taken the opportunity to put pen to page and share your experience in a book, The Fat Ginger Nerd, a weight loss story. How did the book come to be?
So the book actually began at first in the form of a journal that I was keeping for myself while I was losing the weight. Remembering that I had no faith that it would actually work when I began this diet, and to my surprise, I found that it was. I was losing a meaningful amount of weight for the first time in my life. And after a couple of months of this, I'm thinking, something pretty special is happening here. And if I don't keep a record of some description of what's going on, I just had the feeling I might regret it. And I wanted to see this through to its conclusion and keep a record of things along the way. So a few months into the weight loss, I started keeping a written journal for myself, and with no intention of sharing it with anybody. But after a year or two, we'd managed to get around about my success with my weight loss, and I've been able to keep it off. And people started suggesting to me at that point, maybe you should write a book. And I thought at first, books are for experts, for people with qualifications, people who know what they're talking about, who know what they're doing, doctors, scientists, journalists, etc. Not just Joe Average like me from the street. But then I thought, well, on the other hand, I have been keeping a journal for a year or two already. What if I was to just keep going with that project and keep at it, but now with the idea of possibly having a book as an end goal. And a few more years later, here we are.
And tell us, where can we find a copy of it, Brendan?
It's available primarily through my website, thefatgingernerd.com. It's a self-published project, so the physical distribution, there isn't so much of it outside of where I live in Dunedin, unfortunately, but you can order physical copies online, various links on my website, Amazon and others, and so on and so forth. There's an ebook version, obviously, as well.
Well, thanks, Brendan. Great to speak to you tonight. And to listeners, if you want any more details about where to find his book, just text me here on 9292 and I'll flick you the details. We've got to take a break, but we'll be back with your calls in a mo here tonight on the Nutters Club.